Let's go. Game 1 is in the books. There's like 5 minutes left, but I'm just going to come out here and do it really early, get it over with. Instant reaction of Game 1. Cavs take down Toronto, take a 1-0 lead. And if you're the Cavs, this is a huge, huge game for you. You had to win this game at home. You could not let Toronto get the momentum in Game 1. And in the first half, it looked pretty scary. I think both teams were a little nervous and had to have those like pregame jitters get out, especially in the first quarter. Both teams were kind of struggling. Scotty Barnes hit a few threes in the first quarter. Wasn't able to keep that up for the rest of the game, but if he can do that for the entire series, Toronto will drag this series out. But since Barnes didn't, the Cavs were able just to make their shots from the second quarter on. Harden had a really good game. Donovan Mitchell, I think this is his 9th straight Game 1 series in the playoffs with 30-plus points. We'll see if he can keep that up against Toronto. I feel like every Cavs fan is obviously hoping that he does. Mobley had a good game. Jared Allen had a really good first quarter. Everyone was talking, even like the commentators were saying how like Jared Allen is like, you know, regarded as like the soft kind of player, and he came in and got a bunch of dunks. I think he had like 6 dunks so far in this game, maybe even more. I might have miscounted, but this is a huge win for Cleveland. You could not let Toronto come in here and kind of do what New York did a few years ago when the Cavs played New York in round 1. And, you know, like everyone kind of had in Cleveland had that excitement of, you know, we're back in the playoffs. Let's do it. Let's beat New York and see how far we can get. And then the Cavs lost Game 1 and they never got it back, you know. I think the Cavs ended up winning Game 2 that year, but they lost in 5 games, I'm pretty sure. So you could not let Toronto get this game, and like I said, that it looks pretty bad. I was a little worried for the Cavs there if you weren't able to get that home crowd involved into that game, and luckily they were. We'll talk a little bit about how I thought Toronto kind of looked for this game here, but if you were the Cavs, this is exactly what you wanted in this game. You wanted Donovan to score, you know, but you also wanted your other guys to contribute too, and that's exactly what they did. Strus hit a lot of threes, especially in the second half. When he started to get going, that's when the Cavs really took off. Strus needs to do that consistently in this playoff for the Cavs to make a deep run. You know, Mobley was pretty good defensively. I don't know. I don't necessarily think he did very well offensively. I don't have like the stats or anything, but Harden did what Harden does. You know, he made his moments. He made some plays. Refs were a little they should have kept their whistles away for a little bit more in that first half. I definitely thought there was some questionable calls on both sides. Barnes got called out. From what I saw, Barnes got called out of bounds when from my angle, it looked like he didn't step out of bounds. Maybe his heel touched and I just didn't see it. But just little stuff like that. Mitchell gets elbowed in the face and they call it a foul on Mitchell. You know, little ticky-tack stuff that I feel like it could have gone the other way. And that was just, you know, some examples. Not a whole lot to really talk about in that first half. It was kind of uneventful, except with the refs. But that's basketball. You're going to have that. So not a huge deal. It's not like at the end of the game when they're going to cost you. You know what I mean? So that's fine. And if you're Toronto, you got to brush this game off. If you're Toronto, you are, you know, this is the equivalent of losing a baseball game in the playoffs, like 10-0. It doesn't matter for Game 2. These points don't carry over. So Toronto's got to get back into the series, kind of muddy up the waters like they did in the first half, and not let Donovan get going, and not let the Cavs kind of speed up this game. And that's what Toronto really is good at, is, you know, slowing down the pace. And it's weird because that's kind of what the opposite of what Indiana did last year to the Cavs. The Cavs were kind of the team that wanted to slow the pace down, and the Pacers were the ones that played well when the game was sped up and it was all fast breaks and stuff like that. And that's how the Pacers beat us. you know. But now it's almost like the Cavs are the more athletic team in this series, and they're not letting Toronto get set offensively and defensively. They're making Toronto take contested threes, and props to Scotty Barnes for making those threes, especially in the first quarter. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that consistently in this series. We'll see what happens in game 2, but if the Cavs can get game 2, that's huge, because now you're going back to Toronto with a shaken Raptors team and a really, really confident Cavs team where really all you got to get is one game. You're okay dropping one game to Toronto. Maybe you drop game 3, but I would feel like you kind of got to win game 4 then. And especially if the Cavs can win game 3. I know I'm skipping ahead and kind of giving Cavs game 2. Obviously, Toronto could obviously come out and blow the Cavs out of the water like the Cavs did today in game 2 in Cleveland. But let's say, just for argument's sake, the Cavs win game 2. Toronto, that game 3 is a must win for Toronto. And because if Cleveland takes a 3-0 lead, this series is not going to go any further. You know, maybe it goes to 5, but I don't see it going past 6. You know, maybe they bring it back to Toronto for game 6, but I don't see the Cavs blowing a 3-1 lead or a 3-0 lead, you know, in this series, especially against a Toronto team with, by the looks of it today, does not belong on the same floor as the Cavs. Like, I'm sorry, that's just is what it is, you know. But that's today, you know. That can obviously change. Toronto won all of the regular season matchups against the Cavs for a reason, you know. Yes, that was before James Harden got to Cleveland, but you still have that in your back pocket if you're Toronto. Like, hey, we've beaten this team before. We know what it takes to beat this team. And, you know, they can very well do it again. And it would not surprise me if Toronto comes out in game 2 and plays one of their better games of the season. You know, this game 2 is extremely important for both teams, because if Cleveland can win, that means that they have a stranglehold on this series. And if they have a stranglehold in the series, they're not going to let it go. This is not a Cavs team that is going to choke series away. You know, they might, you know, give a game or 2 away. I don't see them losing, you know, 4 straight. Like, I don't see, if Toronto is going to win this series, it's going to be in 7 games, 6 games, something like that. I don't see them winning 4 straight now. You know, with Cleveland, I don't see the Cavs losing in Cleveland in game 2, losing both games in Toronto, and then losing another one in Cleveland. I don't see that. You know, so I think if Toronto is going to win this series, it's going to be in game 6 or in game 7. And, you know, this is why game 1 is so important, because it's such a confidence builder. You know, now Toronto's got to go back to the drawing board and kind of be shell-shocked for game 2. And, you know, that great teams know when to respond. And we're going to learn a lot about with Toronto in game 2. You're also going to learn just as much about the Cavs in game 2. If this was a fluke, you're going to know it. If, you know, the Cavs somehow escape with Toronto in game 2, then, you know, then this series can honestly go either way. Toronto can, when it goes over to Canada, Toronto can easily take both of those games, and we're at a 2-2 series tie if the Cavs win game 2. But if Toronto can win game 2 and take, the worst case scenario for the Cavs now is if Toronto takes game 2 and then takes both games in Toronto, then all of a sudden you're down 3-1 after winning fairly convincingly in game 1 here today. So, you know, that's just my little rant here. You know, Donovan Mitchell had a really good game. Jared Allen, especially in that first quarter, was really impactful for the Cavs and kind of let Cleveland get their little pre-game jitters out, and both teams had that today. You know, it is what it is. James Harden did what James Harden needed to do for this team. Mobley was okay. Not his best game, but not his worst game either. Strus got hot in the second half, which is what the Cavs need. You need someone like Max Strus or Sam Merrill, or, you know, name any bench player. Keon Ellis had his plays in this game. You need that for the Cavs to be able to make a deep run and especially win this series against Toronto. You're not going to get by any team in the playoffs unless it's, one of the play-in teams that somehow knocks out Detroit or Boston. You're not going to get by any of those teams with just Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, as much as we love him in Cleveland, he's not LeBron James. He's not 2018 LeBron James. He's not going to be able to carry a team just by himself. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just going to be my little instant reaction for this. Great win for the Cavs. Obviously, I am filming this before the game even ends, so I can't even give you a final score really. But great win for the Cavs. We will see you in a few days for Game 2. Hopefully that we can repeat this once again.